Guy is driving his girlfriend home when she decides she wants to go to her friend's instead. Her friend lives out of the way, so she tells her boyfriend that she would get naked for him if he drove her. The guy says okay, and the girl takes off all her clothes. The boyfriend is so busy looking at her that he stacks the car and gets stuck between the steering wheel and the seat. He tells her to go get help, and she replies that she can't because she doesn't have any clothes on. He replies, "Take my shoe and cover your snatch with it and go for help." She takes the shoe and runs to the closest gas station. She finds the clerk and says, "Help, my boyfriend is stuck. Can you help us?" The clerk replies, "I'm sorry, I think he's too far in." Late at night, this guy runs into a pub and demands a glass of water from the landlord. The guy drinks it in one gulp and then asks for a second glass. 6 pints later, and he has recovered enough to speak. "Thanks," he croaks. "That's one hell of a thirst you've got," says the landlord. The guy says, "Any man would be as bad if they just had sex with the woman in my car. She's insatiable. She wants me to go right back out there and do it all again, but I can't." "Where's your car?" the landlord asks. "At the roadside," the guy gasps. "Tell you what," says the landlord, "you watch the bar for me while I nip out and take your place? Be my guest," the guy says. So the landlord goes outside and gets in the car. It's totally dark, so the woman doesn't realize she's with a different man. And they get right down to it, humping away. 5 minutes later, there's a knock on the window. It's a cop, and he shines his flashlight on the naked couple. "What's going on here?" he asks. "It's all right, officer," explains the landlord. "She's my wife." The officer replies apologetically, "Oh, sorry, sir, I didn't realize." Looking at the woman, the landlord says, "Neither did I till you switched on that damned light." In the hospital, the relatives gathered in the waiting room, where their family member lay gravely ill. Finally, the doctor came in looking tired and somber. "I'm afraid I'm the bearer of bad news," he said as he surveyed the worried faces. "The only hope left for your loved one at this time is a brain transplant. It's an experimental procedure, very risky, but it is the only hope. Insurance will cover the procedure, but you will have to pay for the brain yourselves." The family members sat silent as they absorbed the news. After a great length of time, someone asked, "Well, how much does a brain cost?" The doctor quickly responded, $5,000 for a male brain and $200 for a female brain. The moment turned awkward. Men in the room tried not to smile, avoiding eye contact with the women, but some actually smirked. A man, unable to control his curiosity, blurted out the question everyone wanted to ask. "Why is the male brain so much more?" The doctor smiled at the childish innocence and explained to the entire group, "It's just standard pricing procedure. We have to mark down the price of the female brains because they've actually been used." Two redneck hunters got a pilot to fly them into the far north for elk hunting. They were quite successful in their venture and bagged 6 big bucks. The pilot came back as arranged to pick them up. They started loading their gear into the plane, including the 6 elk. But the pilot objected, saying, "The plane can take out only 4 of your elk. You will have to leave 2 behind." They argued with him. The year before, they had shot 6, and the pilot had allowed them to put all aboard, and the plane was just the same model and capacity as this. Reluctantly, the pilot finally permitted them to put all 6 aboard. But when they attempted to take off and leave the valley where they were, the little plane could not make it, and they crashed in the wilderness. Climbing out of the wreckage, one redneck said to the other, "Do you know where we are?" "I think so," replied the other redneck. "I think this is about the same place where the plane crashed last year." A man walks into a bar and asks the bartender, "If I show you a really good trick, will you give me a free drink?" The bartender considers it, then agrees. The man reaches into his pocket and pulls out a tiny rat. He reaches into his other pocket and pulls out a tiny piano. The rat stretches, cracks his knuckles, and proceeds to play the blues. After the man finished his drink, he asked the bartender, "If I show you an even better trick, will you give me free drinks for the rest of the evening?" The bartender agrees, thinking that no trick could possibly be better than the first. The man reaches into his pocket and pulls out a tiny rat. He reaches into his other pocket and pulls out a tiny piano. The rat stretches, cracks his knuckles, and proceeds to play the blues. The man reaches into another pocket and pulls out a small bullfrog who begins to sing along with the rat's music. While the man is enjoying his beverages, a stranger confronts him and offers him $100,000 for the bullfrog. "Sorry," the man replies, "he's not for sale." The stranger increases the offer to $250,000 cash up front. "No," he insists, "he's not for sale." The stranger again increases the offer, this time to $500,000 cash. The man finally agrees and turns the frog over to the stranger in exchange for the money. "Are you insane?" the bartender demanded. "That frog could have been worth millions to you, and you let him go for a mere $500,000. "Don't worry about it," the man answered. "The frog was really nothing special. You see, the rat's a ventriloquist." There once was a rich man who was near death. He was very grieved because he had worked so hard for his money and he wanted to be able to take it with him to heaven. So he began to pray that he might be able to take some of his wealth with him. An angel hears his plea and appears to him. "Sorry, but you can't take your wealth with you." The man implores the angel to speak to God to see if he might bend the rules. The man continues to pray that his wealth could follow him. The angel reappears and informs the man that God has decided to allow him to take one suitcase with him. Overjoyed, the man gathers his largest suitcase and fills it with pure gold bars and places it beside his bed. Soon afterward, the man dies and shows up at the gates of heaven to greet St. Peter. St. Peter, seeing the suitcase, says, "Hold on, you can't bring that in here." But the man explains to St. Peter that he has permission and asks him to verify his story with the Lord. Sure enough, St. Peter checks and comes back saying, "You're right, you are allowed one carry-on bag, but I'm supposed to check its contents before letting it through." St. Peter opens the suitcase to inspect the worldly items that the man found too precious to leave behind and exclaims, "You brought pavement?" A wealthy old woman had 3 daughters. One day, she decided to test her sons-in-law. One day, she was walking along a lakeshore with the first son-in-law. Purposefully, she fell down in the lake and started yelling for help. The first son-in-law jumped into the water and dragged her out to the shore. The next day, he found a brand new E-Class Mercedes on his doorstep with the words, "Thank you, your mother-in-law who loves you very much." Another day, she was walking along a lakeshore with the second son-in-law. Purposefully, she fell down in the lake and started yelling for help. The second son-in-law jumped into the water and dragged her out onto the shore. The next day, he found a brand new E-Class Mercedes on his doorstep with the words, "Thank you, your mother-in-law who loves you very much." The third time she was walking with the third son-in-law, and she repeated the same. But that guy didn't respond to her cries for help and didn't move a single step to save her. The poor old lady who wanted to test her sons-in-law drowned and died. The next day, he found a brand new Rolls-Royce on his doorstep with the following words, "Thank you very much, your father-in-law." Little Johnny's dad was a retired gambler. Having picked up a few of his old man's bad habits, Johnny wagered on anything and everything, and he was good at it. Eventually, it became such a problem that Johnny's teacher called his father to discuss it. After a long conversation, they decided to teach him a lesson. One day after class, Johnny approached his teacher. "You're not really blonde," he said. "I've seen your bush, and it's pitch black. You dye your hair." "I most certainly do not," she replied. "I bet you $10 you do," he said. She saw that this was an opportunity to teach him a lesson, so she waited for all the other children to leave the class and took off her pants, showing him that her pubic hair was the same color as the hair on her head. Johnny paid her the $10 and walked sullenly out of the room. A few hours later, Johnny's teacher called his father. "I think I finally taught him a lesson," she said. "The hell you have," his father said angrily. "This morning, he bet me $50 he'd see your vagina before the end of the day." A woman was shaking out a rug on the balcony of her 17th floor condominium when a sudden gust of wind blew her over the railing. "Damn, that was stupid," she thought as she fell. "What a way to die." As she passed the 14th floor, a man standing at his railing caught her in his arms. While she looked at him in disbelieving gratitude, he asked, "Do you suck?" "No!" she shrieked, aghast. So he dropped her. As she passed the 12th floor, another man reached out and caught her. "Do you scream?" he asked. "Of course not," she exclaimed before she could stop herself. He dropped her too. The poor woman prayed to God for one more chance. As luck would have it, she was caught a third time by a man on the 8th floor. "I suck! I scream!" she screamed in panic. He said and dropped her. George Burns was on the Oprah Winfrey Show, proudly claiming that despite being 97 years old, he could still have sex 3 times a night. After the show, Oprah said, "George, if I'm not being too forward, I'd love to spend some time with an older man. How about we go back to my place?" So they head back to her place and have a wonderful time together. Afterward, George says, "If you think that was good, let me rest for half an hour and we can have an even better time, but while I'm sleeping, hold my package in your right hand." She agrees, and he takes a nap. After half an hour, he wakes up, and they enjoy an even better experience. George then says, "That was fantastic, but if you let me sleep for an hour, we can have the best time yet. Just hold my package again." Curious, Oprah asks, "George, does holding your package while you sleep help you?" George chuckles and replies, "Not really, but the last time I slept with a black woman, she stole my wallet." A man walked into a therapist's office looking very depressed. "Doc, you've got to help me. I can't go on like this." "What's the problem?" the doctor inquired. "Well, I'm 35 years old and I still have no luck with the ladies. No matter how hard I try, I just seem to scare them away." "My friend, this is not a serious problem. You just need to work on your self-esteem. Each morning, I want you to get up and run to the bathroom mirror. Tell yourself that you are a good person, a fun person, and an attractive person. But say it with real conviction. Within a week, you'll have women buzzing all around you." The man seemed content with this advice and walked out of the office a bit excited. 3 weeks later, he returned with the same downtrodden expression on his face. "Did my advice not work?" asked the doctor. "It worked all right. For the past several weeks, I've enjoyed some of the best moments in my life with the most fabulous-looking women. So what's your problem?" "I don't have a problem," the man replied. "My wife does." A man walked into a therapist's office looking very depressed. "Doc, you've got to help me. I can't go on like this." "What's the problem?" the doctor inquired. "Well, I'm 35 years old and I still have no luck with the ladies. No matter how hard I try, I just seem to scare them away." "My friend, this is not a serious problem. You just need to work on your self-esteem. Each morning, I want you to get up and run to the bathroom mirror. Tell yourself that you are a good person, a fun person, and an attractive person. But say it with real conviction. Within a week, you'll have women buzzing all around you." The man seemed content with this advice and walked out of the office a bit excited. 3 weeks later, he returned with the same downtrodden expression on his face. "Did my advice not work?" asked the doctor. "It worked all right. For the past several weeks, I've enjoyed some of the best moments in my life with the most fabulous-looking women. So what's your problem?" "I don't have a problem," the man replied. "My wife does." A man walks into a bar, and as he makes his way to the counter, he stops and talks to everyone in the bar. As he finishes with each group of people, they all get up and leave and go stand outside the window, looking in. Finally, the bar is empty except for this guy and the bartender. The man walks up to the counter and says to the bartender, "I bet you $1,000 that I can spray beer from my mouth into a shot glass from 30 feet away and not get any outside the glass." The bartender thinks that this guy is a nutcase, but he wants his $1,000, so he agrees. The bartender gets out a shot glass, paces off 30 feet, and the contest begins. The man sprays beer all over the bar. He doesn't even touch the shot glass. When he finishes, the bartender looks at him and says, "Well, I guess you owe me $1,000, huh?" The man answers, "Yeah, but I bet all of those people outside the window $500 apiece that I could come in here and spray beer all over the bar." A man walks into the front door of a bar. He is obviously drunk. He staggers up to the bar, seats himself on a stool, and with a belch, asks the bartender for a drink. The bartender politely informs the man that it appears that he has already had plenty to drink, He could not be served additional liquor at this bar, but could get a cab called for him. The drunk is briefly surprised, then softly scoffs, grumbles, climbs down off the bar stool, and staggers out the front door. A few minutes later, the same drunk stumbles in the side door of the bar. He wobbles up to the bar and hollers for a drink. The bartender comes over and still politely, but more firmly, refuses service to the man due to his inebriation. Again, the bartender offers to call a cab for him. The drunk looks at the bartender for a moment angrily, curses, and shows himself out the side door, all the while grumbling and shaking his head. A few minutes later, the same drunk bursts in through the back door of the bar. He plops himself up on a bar stool, gathers his wits, and belligerently orders a drink. The bartender comes over and emphatically reminds the man that he is clearly drunk, will be served no drinks, and either a cab or the police will be called immediately. The surprised drunk looks at the bartender and in hopeless anguish cries, "Man, how many bars do you work at?" A couple were invited to a swanky, family-masked, fancy-dress Halloween party. The wife got a terrible headache and told her husband to go to the party alone. He, being a devoted husband, protested, but she argued and said she was going to take some aspirin and go to bed, and there was no need for his good time to be spoiled by not going. So he took his costume, and away he went. The wife, after sleeping soundly for about an hour, woke without pain, and as it was still early, decided to go to the party. As her husband didn't know what her costume was, she thought she would have some fun by watching her husband to see how he acted when she was not with him. So she joined the party and soon spotted her husband in his costume, cavorting around on the dance floor, dancing with every nice chick he could, and copping a little feel here and a little kiss here. His wife went up to him, and being a rather seductive babe herself, he left his new partner high and dry and devoted his time to her. She let him go as far as he wished, naturally, since he was her husband. After more drinks, he whispered a little proposition in her ear, and she agreed. So off they went to one of the cars and had passionate intercourse in the back seat. Just before unmasking at midnight, she slipped away and went home and put the costume away and got into bed, wondering what kind of explanation he would make up for his outrageous behavior. She was sitting up reading when he came in, so she asked what kind of time he had. "Oh, the same old thing. You know I never have a good time when you're not there." Then she asked, "Did you dance much?" He replied, "I'll tell you, I never even danced one dance. When I got there, I met Pete, Bill Brown, and some other guys, so we went into the spare room and played poker all evening." "You must have looked really silly wearing that costume playing poker all night," she said with unashamed sarcasm, to which the husband replied, "Actually, I gave my costume to your dad. Apparently, he had the time of his life." A young fellow ran into an old man who was carrying a bag. "What's in the bag?" the youngster asked. "Magic apples," the old man replied. "Prove it," said the young man. "Well, besides apples, what is your favorite two fruits?" asked the old man. "Watermelon and peaches," he answered. The man handed him an apple and told him to try it out. The boy took a bite and said that it tasted like a watermelon. "Okay, turn it over," he said. The boy did and took another bite and said that it tasted like a peach. The youngster still wasn't convinced that they were magic. The old fellow told him to name something else that he liked to eat. "I like to eat pussy," he snapped. The man handed him another apple and told him to try it. He took a big bite, spit it out, whipped his mouth, and exclaimed, "That tasted like shit." The old man looked at him, smiled, and said, "Turn it over." One day, two brothers, Jack and John, decide to go out diving for seafood. They quickly manage to fill up a sack of seafood, so Jack decides to take it back to shore and grab another sack to fill. John is out at sea all by himself when he sees a shark coming towards him. Frantically, he calls out to his brother Jack, who is still at shore, "Bro, help me! Help me! There is a shark heading straight for me!" Jack calls back, "Yeah, I'm coming, bro." John is freaking out. The shark swims right up to him and bites off his leg. Again, he is calling out to Jack, who is still at the shoreline. "Bro, come and help me. The sharks have bitten off one of my legs." Jack yells back, "Yeah, hold on, I'm coming." John tries to stay calm and wait for his brother, but then the shark bites off one of his arms. He yells back to his brother, Jack, "Hurry! "Come and help, the shark has bitten off my arm and my leg." Jack calls back, "Hold on, I'm coming." Then the shark bites off his other leg, and John yells, "Jack, you have to come and save me. The shark has bitten off both my legs and an arm." And as usual, Jack replies, "Just wait, I'm coming." The shark then bites off John's other arm. Now John has no arms or legs. His brother finally arrives to save him. "Come on, bro. Get on my back and I will swim you back to shore." When they get to the shoreline, Jack says with an exhausted sigh, "I feel fucked." And John replies, "Well, I had to hold on somehow." A young woman is walking into a cathedral when a priest stops her and says, "I'm sorry, miss, you can't come in without a bra." The young woman protests, "But I have a divine right." The priest replies, "A divine left too, but you can't come in." A young girl who was writing a paper for school came to her father and asked, "Dad, what is the difference between anger and exasperation?" The father replied, "It is mostly a matter of degree. Let me show you what I mean." With that, the father went to the telephone and dialed a number at random. To the man who answered the phone, he said, "Hello, is Melvin there?" The man answered, "There is no one living here named Melvin. Why don't you learn to look up numbers before you dial them?" "See," said the father to his daughter, "that man was not a bit happy with our call. He was probably very busy with something, and we annoyed him. Now watch." The father dialed the number again. "Hello, is Melvin there?" asked the father. "Now look here," came the heated reply. "You just called this number, and I told you that there is no Melvin here. You've got a lot of nerve calling again." The receiver slammed down hard. The father turned to his daughter and said, "You see, that was anger. Now I'll show you what exasperation means." He dialed the same number, and when a violent voice roared, "Hello?" the father calmly said, "Hello, this is Melvin. Have there been any calls for me?" Willie comes home from work, and as he walks in the door, Ethel grabs him and says, "Come on, Willie, we're going upstairs." Willie replies, "Okay, that's one of my favorite things." As soon as they get upstairs, Ethel grabs Willie and throws him down on the bed and jumps aboard. Willie protests, "Stop, stop, we can't do it that way anymore." Ethel asks, "What do you mean, Willie? I like it that way, and so do you." Willie replies, "You're sure right on that. In fact, that is one of my favorite things. But if we do it that way anymore, I'll lose my job." Ethel asks, "What do you mean, Willie? That doesn't make any sense." Willie explains, "The boss called me in the office today and told me, 'Willie, you screw up one more time and you're fired.'" A beautiful, well-endowed young blonde goes to her local pet store in search of an exotic pet. As she looks about the store, she notices a box full of frogs. The sign says, "Sex frogs, only $20 each, money back guarantee." Comes with complete instructions. The girl excitedly looks around to see if anybody's watching her and whispers softly to the man behind the counter, "I'll take one." The man packaged the frog and said, "Just follow the instructions carefully." The girl nods, grabs the box, and is quickly on her way home. As soon as she closes the door to her apartment, the girl takes out the instructions and reads them thoroughly, doing exactly what it says to do. 1. Take a shower. 2. Splash on some nice-smelling perfume. 3. Slip into a very sexy teddy. 4. Crawl into bed and position the frog in place. She then quickly gets into bed with the frog, and to her surprise, nothing happens. The girl is totally frustrated and quite upset at this point. She rereads the instructions and notices at the bottom of the paper it says, "If you have any problems or questions, please call the pet store." So, the girl calls the pet store. The man says, "I had some complaints earlier today. I'll be right over." Within 5 minutes, the man is ringing her doorbell. The girl welcomes him in and says, "See, I've done everything according to the instructions, and the damn thing just sits there." The man, looking very concerned, picks up the frog, stares directly into its eyes, and sternly says, "Listen to me, I'm only going to show you how to do this one more time." A professor is sent to darkest Africa to live with a primitive tribe. He spends years with them, teaching them reading, writing, math, and science. One day, the wife of the tribe's chief gives birth to a white child. The tribe is shocked, and the chief pulls the professor aside and says, "Look here, you're the only white man we've ever seen, and this woman gives birth to a white child. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what happened," the professor replied. "No, chief, you're mistaken. What you have here is a natural occurrence, what we in the civilized world call an albino. Look at that field over there. All of the sheep are white except for one black one. Nature does this on occasion." The chief was silent for a moment, then said, "Tell you what, you don't say anything more about that sheep, and I won't say anything more about that white child." A woman goes into a tattoo parlor and tells the tattoo artist that she wants a tattoo of a turkey on her right thigh just below her bikini line. She also wants him to put "Happy Thanksgiving" under the turkey. So the guy does it, and it comes out looking really good. The woman then instructs him to put a Santa tattoo with "Merry Christmas" up on her left thigh. So the guy does it, and it comes out looking good, too. As the woman is getting dressed to leave, the tattoo artist asks, "If you don't mind, could you tell me why you had me put such unusual tattoos on your thighs?" She says, "I'm sick and tired of my husband complaining all the time that there's nothing good to eat between Thanksgiving and Christmas." Some not-too-smart gangsters decide to rob a bank. After several days of planning, they agree on the best plan. The next day, they get to work and are able to get into the bank relatively easily thanks to their planning. Once inside the main vault, they discover one wall is full of safety deposit boxes and start to work on them immediately. They drill and pry open the first box only to find a small container of vanilla pudding inside. The head gangster says, "Okay, well, at least we can eat it." So they eat the pudding. They drill and pry open up the second safety deposit box, and there sits another pudding. They decide to devour it too. Determined to find the goods, the process continues for the rest of the night until all the safety deposit boxes have been opened. They didn't find any money or jewelry in any of the boxes. Disappointed, the head gangster said, "Well, at least they left something for us to eat." The next day, while listening to the news, they hear, "Yesterday, the largest sperm bank in the USA was robbed by an unknown group of people." Two rednecks are out hunting, and as they are walking along, they come upon a huge hole in the ground. They approach it and are amazed by the size of it. The first hunter says, "Wow, that's some hole. I can't even see the bottom. I wonder how deep it is." The second hunter says, "I don't know. Let's throw something down and listen and see how long it takes to hit bottom." The first hunter says, "There's this old transmission here. Give me a hand and we'll throw it in and see." So they pick it up and carry it over and count 1 and 2 and 3 and throw it in the hole. They are standing there listening and looking over the edge, and they hear a rustling in the brush behind them. As they turn around, they see a goat come crashing through the brush, run up to the hole with no hesitation, and jump in head first. While they are standing there looking at each other, looking in the hole, and trying to figure out what that was all about, an old farmer walks up. "Say there," says the farmer. "You fellers didn't happen to see my goat around here anywhere, did you?" The first hunter says, "Funny you should ask, but we were just standing here a minute ago and a goat came running out of the bushes doing about 100 miles an hour and jumped head first into this hole here." And the old farmer said, "Why, that's impossible. I had him chained to a transmission." A man boarded an airplane and took his seat. As he settled in, he glanced up and saw an unusually beautiful woman boarding the plane. He soon realized she was heading straight toward his seat. Lo and behold, she took the seat right beside his. Eager to strike up a conversation, he blurted out, "Business trip or vacation?" She turned, smiled, and said, "Business. I'm going to the annual Sexual Studies Convention in Chicago." He swallowed hard. Here was the gorgeous woman he had ever seen sitting next to him, and she was going to a meeting about sexual studies. Struggling to maintain his composure, he calmly asked, "What's your business role at this convention?" "Lecturer," she responded. "I use my extensive personal experience to share interesting facts about sexuality." "Really, Ahid? Like what?" "Well," she explained, "for instance, Native American Indians are the most passionate, while Jewish men are the most likely to satisfy a woman fully, and in terms of lasting the longest, surprisingly, it's the Southern redneck." Saying this, She became a little uncomfortable and blushed. "I'm sorry," she said. "I shouldn't really be discussing this with you. I don't even know your name." "Oh," said the man, holding out his hand, "Tonto Goldstein at your service, but my friends call me Bubba." A husband and wife love to golf together, but neither of them is playing like they want to, so they decide to take private lessons. The husband has his lesson first. After the pro sees his swing, he says, "No, no, no, you're gripping the club way too hard." "Well, what should I do?" asks the man. "Hold the club gently." The pro replied, "Just like you'd hold your wife's breast." The man takes the advice, takes a swing, and wow! He hits the ball 250 wideys, straight up the fairway. The man goes back to his wife with the good news, and the wife can't wait for her lesson. The next day, the wife goes for her lesson. The pro watches her swing and says, "No, no, no, you're gripping the club way too hard." "What can I do?" asks the wife. "Hold the club gently, just like you'd hold your husband's penis." The wife listens carefully to the pro's advice, takes a swing, and thump. The ball goes straight down the fairway, about 15 feet. "That was great," the pro says. "Now take the club out of your mouth and swing the club like you're supposed to," says the pro.